Hey guys, welcome to Grad Coach TV, where we demystify and simplify the oftentimes confusing world of academic research. My name's David, and today I'm chatting to one of our trusted coaches, Amy, about 5 top tips for writing a strong methods chapter. This discussion is based on one of the many articles over at the Grad Coach blog. So, if you're looking for more information about the methods chapter, be sure to head over to gradcoach.com/blog. Also, if you're looking for a helping hand with your dissertation, thesis, or research project, be sure to check out our one-on-one private coaching service, where one of our coaches will be with you every step of your research journey, holding your hand step by step. For more information and to book a free consultation, head over to gradcoach.com. So Amy, thanks so much for joining us today as we chat about tips for your methodology.
Thank you, David. Happy to be here.
So if we think about the tips that we have today, the first one is to have a rough outline before you get to writing. Amy, what's the benefit of having this outline?
Well, the benefit is you know what you're going to write and how to write it. Your methods chapter is the most important chapter of your whole study. It also seems to be the chapter that students struggle with the most. So the good news is there's a lot of great resources out there that you can use. So one of those is the Saunders Research Onion. And again, you want to use the Saunders Research Onion or whatever you use is just to give you kind of a framework, something to hold on to, a roadmap, right, for the sections and how to arrange them. So maybe you begin with your research philosophy. So are you going to be using a positivist approach, interpretivist, or social constructivism? Then think about your reasoning. Are you using inductive reasoning in your analysis or deductive? And then what kind of design are you going to employ? Are you doing a qualitative study, a quantitative study, or a mixture of both, which would be mixed methods? You need to decide that before you begin writing. Otherwise, you'll just get completely lost and you'll lose that thread. You'll lose that consistency. Then you need to think about, once you've decided qual or quant, what kind of study are you actually going to do? If you're doing a qualitative study, you have some options: grounded theory, phenomenology, ethnography, case study. If you're doing quant, you're going to be doing some sort of statistical analysis using a survey. So, and then really at the heart of this whole thing is your data. Where are you getting your data from? Are you doing interviews? Are you doing document analysis? Are you using some sort of database of archived data for your statistical analysis? You have to think about each of these decisions before you start writing. That way, it will all be tightly aligned, going back to your research questions and your research aims, which is always the goal.
So I think it's important to note, while a lot of what we might have been speaking about sounds a bit like jargon, don't worry, we've got you covered. We have videos on Saunders Research Onion, as well as a lot of the methodological choices. So do take a look at the links down below, or take a look at the other videos on our channel.
Yes, absolutely. And what I also tell my students is none of this is knowledge that any of us is born knowing how to do. And that's why you do kind of have to do the legwork, right? That's part of what makes getting a master's, getting a PhD such an achievement, is that you've put in so much time and effort.
So our second tip is to take inspiration from what other studies have done. Amy, what kind of inspiration can we take from previous literature?
Well, when you are trying to think about how to design your methods section, you know, the good news is there's so much published research that is going to be in some way similar to your methods section. So you want to identify this research. It can really help. So a lot of times what I see with students is they're not sure how to present their data and what to include and what to leave for the appendix. So if you're doing a qualitative study, for example, and you want to present to your participants, how do you present them? How much data to include? Should you put it in a chart or graph form? Should you leave that for the appendix? If you study the norms of your discipline, right, and the research that's published, you'll be able to kind of figure that out because you'll see how other people did it. And then, of course, at the end of the day, you need to trust your own instincts of what is going to work best for you in your study.
I think that's a really great point. I know from a quantitative perspective, writing up the stats analysis section of your methodology can always be a little bit daunting. And so if you're taking a look at what previous people have done, how they've published their analysis, That's really going to help you out. So take a look for a study that's used a similar statistical approach and just use what they have. Another bit of advice is to take a look at the guidelines for your university. Most departments have expectations for what you'd put in your methods chapter. And so that's a really great way that you can get that kind of information.
Good point, because word count is a reality. In your proposal, let's say you're only allowed 2,000 words. Well, that has to factor into what you're going to include in the proposal anyway. Later on, you're going to expand it, and your study is always going to have its sort of natural, evolution, and it's going to change and it's going to expand, and it should. That's a part of the process.
Yeah, and that process changes. You're going to get feedback from supervisors. So definitely looking at what has come before is super helpful. So tip number 3 is to make sure you justify your choices rather than just stating what you did. Amy, why is it so important to justify in your methods chapter, and how do we go about doing this?
Right. Well, it's so important because you want to convey that you have done so much research and you've put so much time and energy in terms of figuring out the best, most effective, most practical methodological choices. So you really want to get into detail and have a strong justification for what method you're choosing, why you're choosing it, and how you're going to apply it. You also want to make sure that you're linking each of these choices back to your research questions, back to your research aims and objectives.
I think that's really important because it might happen that you're designing a study and you're planning to use a survey, but if you haven't considered what your research aims and objectives are, there might be a miscommunication there. For instance, maybe your research question is exploring people's lived experiences of an earthquake. The survey is not the best way to assess that. You might be better off using IPA or phenomenological research. Also, it will happen where you won't be able to use the best methodology. Maybe there's limitations in budget or time. In cases like that, it's okay to use an alternative methodology, but you need to still justify that choice. Maybe it's about time horizon, so how much time you have to put towards your study. If you only have a year, you're not really going to be able to do a longitudinal study.
Right. And in the qual world, if you want to do grounded theory, if you have 3 years, great. If you don't have that much time, you need to use a different approach, and that's perfectly fine. So if you want to choose a case study, it's not going to take as long. But it's still so important that if you choose a case study, for example, that you first begin by defining and defending why qualitative is best for your study design and not quantitative. You need to define and defend case study. Why are you choosing case study over other types of qualitative designs? The point is you have to defend and justify each of these decisions, why they're best for your work.
That's so true. And sometimes that justification is based on literature. Sometimes it's based on your research context. But the important part is that you're clearly conveying that to your reader. So our 4th tip for your methods chapter is rather lean on having too much detail than too little. Amy, why is it good to have a little bit extra detail in the methods chapter?
Well, one of the goals of research, right, is that it should be replicated, at least in theory, in other contexts outside of your study, right? So one of the things that I see with students is a tendency to give more of a summary of their study rather than going step by step. So your methods chapter should be the most detailed of all of your chapters. So in the qualitative world, generalizability. Maybe it's not as important as it is in a quantitative study, but in a qualitative study, it is important to convey rigor. And the way that you do that is by detailing, especially your data around your data. So how did you sample your participants and your data? How did you analyze your data? What kind of coding are you using? All of these things, detail, detail, detail.
Exactly. It's really important to keep that detail in place, the exact steps you followed. And rather err on the side of having too much detail, because it's going to happen that you're going to get your supervisor coming in or a reviewer suggesting you remove stuff, that you add things. It's easier always to take out than it is to put back in. So I always say, try and have more than having less. It's going to make your life easier later down the line, unless word count is a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Word count does matter. And you also want, your supervisor to think that you're really trying your hardest, you know what you're doing, and that you're really trying to figure this out. And the way to do that is by having all of these components in there in detail. It's difficult sometimes to also predict what your supervisor, or how they're going to give you feedback and what they're going to tell you to take out. Some supervisors prefer, for example, that you have a lot of detail around your research philosophy, and some don't want it in there at all. So it's better to have all of that in, right, and convey that that that's in a lot of research the way that you're supposed to do it. And then later on, they might tell you to take it out, and that's easy. That's fine.
Exactly, Amy. Rather have too much detail than too little. You don't know what your supervisor is going to want you to take out or what's necessary. So having more will make it easier as you go through the process of draft iteration, because it's easier to take out than it is to put back in. So our fifth and final tip is the importance of providing academic citations to support the design decisions you do. So Amy, what kind of decisions need that citation support?
Every decision, David. So what I see with students is this tendency to think that citations belong in the literature review chapter and not in the methods, but that isn't true, because we're building on prior research. We're building on what expert authors, what seminal authors. So these seminal authors are these people who have been cited thousands of times. When you go to Google Scholar and you type in qualitative research, you're going to see certain names pop up, and they've been cited thousands of times. Those are the people you want to make sure that you include for each of your methodological decisions, because that demonstrates that you're familiar with their work. You yourself are becoming an expert on this topic that you're writing about, but you're factoring in what the previous, we'll say, methodological royalty have said about it.
That's such a key point, and it's really important to cite them. But also, when you're citing a methodology, it's also helpful to cite the royalty that created the methodology, but then also to cite those who have since used that approach in similar research. It's really going to help strengthen your justifications.
Yes, quality matters. The quality of the citation does matter. So yes, you want to have a lot of citations, but you also want to be thoughtful about who you're citing. So for example, you want to avoid websites. You want to stick to citing academic papers, academic journals, research. Peer-reviewed research is the goal.
Definitely. And another bit of advice, cite as you go. So while you're researching this, while you're writing up the chapter, make sure to put those citations in. It's easy to lose them after the fact. And remember, you should be researching and searching for information on these methodologies. You're not making design decisions based on what you feel is the best choice. You're doing that based on what you see in the data and on research is important. And then based on that, you're making these design decisions. Amy, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been really helpful. Love having you on the Coach Casts.
Thank you, David. Was happy to be here.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up this episode of Grad Coach TV. Remember, for more information about the methods chapter or any other area of research, be sure to check out the blog at gradcoach.com/blog. There you can also get access to our free thesis and dissertation writing mini course that gives you all the information you need to get started with your research journey. Then don't forget, if you're looking for a helping hand with your dissertation, thesis, or research project, be sure to check out our one-on-one private coaching service, where you can work with a friendly coach just like Amy. For more information and to book a free consultation, head over to gradcoach.com. Well, that's it for today. Until next time, good luck.